Imagine harnessing the power of a single book chapter to dramatically alter your perception of self, the world, and your divine connection. Today we plunge headfirst into such a chapter from The Journey Begins Within by SAVI. This isn't your average chapter, oh no. It's an immersive experience and a catalyst for transformation. This journey begins within you, could lead to the unearthing of your true self, and could profoundly change you. Here we go. Enjoy.
Random events leading the way, exploring the unknown, the initial willful encounters. As with everything good in life, it starts small and when you are not looking. My first encounters with the spirit were random and in a time and place I least expected. I vividly remember the events, but not necessarily the exact chronology between them. As I expressed throughout other passages of this book, I never lived an extraordinary life. If anything, my desire to attain freedom from all my childhood family impositions always drove me to seek escape from constraints. With this, I chose a life more steered towards freedom and travel than a career path. My real estate brokerage practice allowed me the flexibility I aspired to attain this freedom. It was never easy because being a solo practitioner within my brand made it significantly more complex than if I had gone to work as a salesperson or broker within the top brands. I digress, but I wanted to set the tone for this chapter as the subsequent events' time and places differ from your typical 9 to 5. I am not sure why, other than my thirst for exploration and, frankly, instinctive drives, which led me to establish a relationship with a friend of a friend in Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia. Again, to protect the anonymity of others, I will not provide further details. Having connected with this individual and fostered a lovely pen-pal relationship for some time, I discovered that we had many interests in common. So one day, out of the blue, I decided to travel to Bolivia as there were potential business opportunities in the region in agriculture toward the later part of the 2000s. While there, I was able to deepen my knowledge of the area and set opportunities while strengthening my bonds with my new friends. One afternoon, I had the chance to accompany them on a ministry mission within their church to a less than favorable neighborhood in town to deliver some donations. The Jeep van we were driving had seen its heyday long ago and could be considered a rust bucket, nothing uncommon in developing countries, but certainly not what you would be driving in South Beach. I have never been a man to shy away from a good adventure, so I went along. I remember that day perfectly. When the supernatural becomes natural, you tend not to forget. By that time, I was beginning to develop what I like to call a connection with the other side, or spirit, through which I would empty myself of all thought, find stillness in my mind and heart, and somehow not ask myself how, simply because neither I understand it, nor know how or why. I would feel a sort of energetic connection with what I have come to call my higher self or spirit. In this connection, I know that what I ask is given to me for the benefit of all those involved, and all I say is, thank you. With this clarification, here are the events I recall. We all went inside the building where we needed to deliver the supplies. As we came out, my friend, who was in the driver's seat, tried starting the vehicle, but it did not prevail. She had almost drained the battery when I told her to stop and let me check the engine to ensure no connections were loose. I have always been a bit of a car buff, like my grandfather, Oscar. I enjoyed playing mechanics in Argentina, but I always got my hands dirty with tools and engines. Anyhow, I opened the hood and checked the battery connectors, the relays, and the starter. Everything seemed normal. I knew that the engine had just worked. We were not out of fuel as we had over half a tank, and I could see the carburetor spraying fuel. I checked for sparks by unplugging one of the harness's leads and checking for ignition. "Uh-oh," I said. "We are in trouble now," as nothing obvious was happening. I noticed my two friends' anxiety starting to ramp up to a heightened state. I asked them why they were so nervous, to which they responded that we were on the wrong side of town at the wrong time, and if we did not leave soon, we would undoubtedly get mugged. Our lives or wallets were at stake. With this, I asked my friend to give the starter another try, and if the engine turned over, she should carefully pump the gas to ensure we had enough fuel. We waited to see if the engine was flooded, being warm and at high elevation. That could also be the reason. Again, she cranked the engine several times, but after many attempts, nothing. The battery was indeed beginning to deplete, making the engine slow to turn. We had been at this now for over 30 minutes. Then, something came to me, a total stillness and certainty. With this embodied state, I asked my friend to let me sit at the steering wheel. I closed my eyes and rested my hands over the steering wheel. I connected, as I like to call it, and made an intention. It was simple. Please start. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the tension in the car. It is hard to describe the feeling once I know my intent has been fulfilled, but it is one of absolute certainty. I said thank you, merely a few seconds after my friend had tried in vain for over 30 minutes. I turned the ignition key on, and the engine rumbled to life instantly, the sound of its awakening echoing in the stillness of the neighborhood. It is hard to quantify this as a miracle, as there was no supernatural event one could pinpoint, but it was one of the first times I had experienced the synchronous connection between mind, heart, and the wish fulfilled. Everything I share in this book results from my Gnostic experiences with inexplicable forces and circumstances. There have been other instances like this, but I prefer to save space for the truly remarkable and unquestionable ones, which I will discuss towards the end of the book. Let's focus on a more supernatural event to start warming you up for the ones that will genuinely leave you gasping for air. I can't just jump to the deep end, or I'm afraid I might lose you. It was a typical workday. At the time, I had bought my dream waterfront condo on an island in South Beach, and I was finally living the dream. I had an excellent work-life balance that allowed me to walk from my home to a gym that was located above the Sardinia restaurant in Maurice Gibbs Memorial Park. So there I was, at the gym in the middle of the morning. As always, when I least expected it, the unexpected and supernatural decided to show up. Between training sets, I walked towards the water fountain as I was, for whatever reason, extremely thirsty, more than usual. As I approached the water fountain, there was this colossal guy, your typical professional bodybuilder. I mean, his arms were the size of my legs, to put it in perspective. He was crouching over the water fountain as he drank, taking his sweet time. The amount of water this man was drinking and the time he was taking made it seem as if he had just returned from an expedition in the Sahara Desert. I was starting to get annoyed. I was desperately thirsty by now, and he just kept crouching over with the water now hitting his lips and spilling over. I contained my annoyance and said to myself, "This dude is huge. I better keep my cool. We have nothing to prove here today." In what was almost perfect timing, as divine timing always is, the minute I surrendered and simply let go of my desire to drink, this man stood up. His eyes were red from crying, which I had not noticed. He was emotionally disturbed and shaken. Given what I was witnessing, I didn't understand what was happening before me. I went from being annoyed to feeling concern and empathy for him. Before I was able to muster a word, right when I was about to ask him, "Are you okay?" he burst into tears and told me, "God himself is telling me to tell you that he loves you very much." To my surprise, with my jaw completely open, I stared at him, and for a brief instant, we locked eyes. I felt his presence and knew he was not lying to me. I hugged him and whispered, "Don't worry, you're not going crazy." This sort of thing happened to me, as this was neither the first nor the last time our Heavenly Father channeled through others in plain sight to deliver messages to and for me. This man, who I never saw again, was so embarrassed about crying in front of everyone in the gym that he gathered his belongings and ran away that day. I never saw him again, but I know for certain that this had to be a defining moment for him, as much as it was for me. I brushed off the event as I normally would and continued living an everyday life, if such a thing existed for me. If the content moves you, we invite you to embark on your journey by purchasing a copy of the book at Amazon, Kindle, or iBook today. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, keep exploring. The journey begins within. Click like and subscribe for additional details. See the video description.